there'll be very few riders that have never suffered from this, what we think of as a spotlight effect. In other words, where you feel everyone's eyes are upon you, everything's all about you, everything's going to be critical of you, thoughtful of you. You are in everyone's thoughts, activities, and it makes us become small. How many times have we backed away from a situation where we're wanting to do something, and because of the spotlight effect, the thought of everyone watching us, everyone being critical of us, we haven't actually gone out and done the thing that we were actually wanting to do. We think of this as the spotlight effect, and it's through that where we are very self-critical of the fact that we think everyone else is watching us, everyone else is being critical of our performances, of our efforts, and so we restrict ourselves, we make ourselves smaller, we make ourselves not shine, we make ourselves not put in the path of doing the thing we want to do. And it's that spotlight effect that often takes us away. We do the training, we put in the effort, we put in the miles, and yet then we don't do the very thing that we're trying to do. The spotlight effect, like if you think of it this way, like I'm sitting here at a skate park, I would never have done something like this a little while ago where, I'm filming, my daughter is riding in the skate park. I would have assumed everyone would have been watching me. I would have been very embarrassed, very self-conscious of the fact that I'm doing something that's a little weird and a little off, and yet I've been here for the last 5 minutes and no one's even noticed and no one's actually reacted to me at all. But through the effect of that spotlight effect, we think of everyone being aware of our actions, being aware of exactly what we're doing. And obviously this is exacerbated a little bit more when we go into the competition ring. But if we actually acknowledge the fact that the people that are on our team are going to wish us well, the people, which is the vast majority, don't really have a stake either way and don't really care that much whether we go well, go badly. The human nature is sometimes that people are a little bit more self-critical and glad that someone else is having, but it's not necessarily as a detriment to them. However, the biggest thing we often think about is the fact that the people that aren't in our corner and that are against us are going to be thinking that way anyway. They won't even have to have seen our performance for them to be self-critical in that way. So it doesn't really matter sometimes what we do in the ring. They would have been, critical of our performances no matter what. And it's those that sometimes hold us back, because obviously in this modern day we are aware of criticism, we are aware of criticisms and aware that other people are critical of other people, but that's actually a very small majority, very small minority, and we put them up on this pedestal that restricts us from going out and doing things that we want to do. Rather than it being a limiting factor, we want it to be a factor of, well, let's show them what we can do. Let's show them what's possible. And if it's not, they would have been critical of us anyway. So how do we get through those moments? Well, one of the easiest things is first to acknowledge that we are going to have that self-conscious effect, and that's perfectly normal. We are human after all. We're going to be fairly exposed, especially in a competition sense. And so then it really comes down to, well, what are the training tools that I need to do? Where's the focus that I need to be? When I become hypervigilant, when I become hypersensitive, how do I reground myself? How do I make sure I'm connected to the moment I'm trying to do? And what was my plan in the first place? Because the spotlight effect only takes us into its dark little web when we become unpresent from the task we're actually trying to do. So especially it's often the thing that stops us. So we've got to think of how we are going to handle the day, and sometimes even a few days before, because that's when it's often highlighting, before the event or before you go in the ring is actually when it can be the most debilitating. Often when you get into the ring itself, you can actually become action focused. But if you're not, how do we make sure that we ground ourselves? How do we make sure that we're around the community of people that we want to be around, that will help us actually work through any situation? And it's about the situation, and it's about what we need to do in the situation rather than the thoughts of others, rather than the actions of others. So the other big thing that then holds us often back in those situations is the fact that we think we have to be perfect to prove to others that we're worthy of their acknowledgement and worthy of not being criticized. You know, we don't often have that pathway that we will achieve perfection. You know, perfection is there for a reason. Perfection is, 10 out of 10, and there's very few times in life, very few times in training, very few times in competition that we'll ever achieve 10 out of 10s all day, every day. So just what is the most important thing? So at times you are going to have quite bad days, because the most important thing is that you and the horse are exposed to moments like this where are noisy and unpredictable and a bit chaotic. Of course, then you're not going to have perfect days. But it's, can I hang in that situation? Can I be in that atmosphere? Can I just be around those certain things? So thinking that I need to be perfect rather than I just need to be present, rather than I just need to stay and hold my space, is sometimes a really big acknowledgement of coming to terms with being a competition rider, or even just going out into a clinic situation where we're feeling really uncertain and we're feeling all the eyes are on us. What do you need out of this situation? So if it's going out and just exposing yourself and exposing your horse and exposing your training to the glare of basically just a different situation, as opposed to, at that elite level where you're making sure, hopefully you've got those tools in place that allows you to stay present, allows you to stay task focused, and allows you to stay really orientated to what's required and able to block out all those outside distractions and all those outside thoughts. So the trick then is often going out and actually exposing yourself in quieter situations. So in other words, going out to a clinic, going out to a shared lesson, going out to just the competition venue itself before you get to the pressure of a competition. Often we get backed into a corner of an all or nothing strategy. I've only have the emotional energy and the emotional strategy for being out there once, but I'm not actually training my emotions to be exposed over a longer period of time and through little bits. Like, exposing your emotions are like anything else. We train our physical self, we train our skills often, but sometimes we forget to train our emotions into that space and holding our space for a competition environment or just a clinic environment if we've been quite unsure or overwhelmed. So training your emotions to be able to notice, is this my storm? Is it my horse's storm? Or is it actually got nothing to do with me whatsoever, and I can just hold my own space? And obviously, like anything, making sure you have good grounding skills and making sure you have good skills to reconnect and reset both yourself and your horse. So these are the things that we want to think about when we have that feeling of being overwhelmed with that spotlight effect. And also we can do things like this, which is, outside the horse. If I suffer really badly from the spotlight effect, I want to slowly, it's a bit like when we talk about, public speaking. Well, if you're really nervous about public speaking, you don't suddenly go, well, I'm going to book a stage and talk in front of 10,000 people. I'll slowly get more comfortable with having an opinion in small groups that I trust, but making sure I do voice my opinion at the time, making sure that I expose myself, to different situations that I would normally back away from. So if I'm actually having that really scary part of the spotlight effect, it's often not just in your horse riding that comes out. So can I expose myself in little small sections, even outside riding? Anyway, I hope these little thoughts help. Remember to like and subscribe. Let me know if you've had really bad experiences with the spotlight effect and how much that has restricted you as going forward and actually becoming the rider and the competition rider sometimes that you want to be, or just exposing yourself to different clinics. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.